Hello everyone and Happy New Year. I've been really busy for the holidays, so I missed last week's update, but now I'm back to catch you up on what's been happening with the MiSTer FPGA scene. So let's get to it. Martin Donlin, also known as Wickerwaka, is currently documenting the Irem M92 hardware. Right now he has a pretty good understanding of the A board for the M92, excluding the audio parts. Most of the pins on the GA21 and 22 chips have been identifying, and the plan is to document their operation. The M92 hardware runs games like R-Type Leo, In the Hunt, Ninja Baseball Batman, and many more. You can also check out Wickerwaka's already released core based on Irem's M72 hardware that can run R-Type, Ninja Spirit, and more. Antonio Villena, a vendor of MiSTer FPGA products, is selling a low-latency USB arcade joystick that has a built-in spinner control. This is a cool way to save on space if you also enjoy games that use a spinner. Antonio says that the latency is 0.74 milliseconds. It contains an 8-way Sanwa joystick with 10 Sanwa buttons, and the spinner has an aluminum knob with a 600p/R optical rotary encoder. The spinner has been tested with the following MiSTer cores: Arkanoid, Breakout, Pong, Pop and Bounce on the Neo Geo core, Arkanoid on the NES core, Flying Hero on the NES core, the AY3-8500 core, and the Atari 26/7800 core. At the time of this recording, there was only one controller in stock, so if this is of interest to you, you may want to purchase it quickly. The controller costs 200 euros. Several months ago, Mr. Addons announced an adapter he calls Reflex that allows you to connect multiple original controllers over USB. It will support 6 NES and 6 Super NES controllers, 2 Genesis and 2 Saturn controllers, 1 PlayStation controller, but there is the possibility of making the PlayStation mode be able to support up to 6 PlayStation controllers. This adapter is based on Sonic's do-it-yourself Retro Zord adapter. There was also a recent update on the PlayStation mode for the adapter. If you have a Namco Joy-Con, a feature that's being added to the adapter is for the wheel to send button commands instead of axis movements. This could make the Joy-Con compatible with a lot more games. If you want to see a demonstration of the adapter using the Joy-Con controller, check out MiSTer Walrus FPGA's YouTube channel to see a video showing it off with the arcade version of Forgotten Worlds. I can see this controller also being very useful for Akari warriors. Core developer Javier now unified the Xain'd Sleena core. When it was initially released, it was available in 2 different cores, and the core that you would use would depend on the type of RAM you had. Now 2 cores are no longer needed, so you don't have to rename files if you are using the 60Hz mode. Also, a hacks menu was added to the core. This menu will allow you to choose the CPU speed between 1x and 2x turbo mode. These updates are available now, so update your MiSTer to obtain them. There has also been a new official release of the PlayStation core. The new features added to this release are an option to black out the display for 3 frames when there's a resolution switch. This option was added because games that switch resolutions may show some garbled graphics for 3 frames when the resolution changes. With this option on, those graphics will be replaced with the black frames. This can look weird if a game is supposed to have an all-white screen during some switches, so you have the option to disable this feature, which is on by default. Another feature added is when you start a game with any unsafe options enabled, this will now trigger a warning. There are also lots of fixes to games. Games affected by these fixes are Internal Section, Final Fantasy Tactics, Primal Rage, Simple Series Billiard, Alien Resurrection, Grandia, and Aconcagua. All these changes will be available the next time you update your MiSTer, if you haven't done so already. This core does not include the 2x CPU speed and cache changes. That's a separate forked core that's available on the developer's Patreon. And another fix coming for a future update in the core is a bug in Alien Resurrection that prevented a door from opening has been fixed. Robert, the developer, will also provide a full technical analysis of this bug fix on his Patreon page. I really suggest joining his Patreon if you're interested in this type of technical analysis and to support the work that Robert does. Reading his technical analysis shows you exactly how much work is done to fix such a seemingly simple problem. Darren O has enabled 2 more games for the Alpha Denshi core. These games are Time Soldiers and Sky Soldiers. Track 17 helped with testing and also released the documentation for the hardware. You should be able to obtain these cores through Update All with the Chelnov collection option enabled. Jotego released a beta for the arcade game Chelnov. The game PCB was donated by Track 17 and DJ Hardrich. There's some great news regarding some future cores. Core developer Pramod is now working on cores for the arcade games NARC and Smash TV. Currently, the CPU for the hardware is 90% done. Note that this CPU is also used on Mortal Kombat and NBA Jam. Having this CPU documented will certainly help with developing cores for those games. If you want to know some technical details on the hardware and also follow Pramod's journey in developing this core, check out his blog. NARC is a side-scrolling run-and-gun game that was pretty violent for the time. The game used digitized sprites that looked great on its medium-resolution monitor. Smash TV is the game that I'm more excited about. The game is really easy to get into and plays just like Robotron with a lot of bells and whistles. This game will make excellent use of today's dual-stick gamepads. Anton Gale has released cores for Tiger Heli and Slap Fight. Track 17 helped with giving Anton Gale some direction to be able to use the same RBF to run all games based on the hardware. So we can expect to see more games added to this core. The games that I'm aware of that run on the same hardware are Performin', which is a top-down action game where the goal is to eliminate the enemies on screen to progress further in the game, and Get Star or Guardian, which is a side-scrolling beat-em-up where you control a robot as the fighter. Jotego also posted what his plans will be for a few weeks. He planned to release 3 new cores each Friday, and we did get the Chelnov core. However, this past Friday we didn't get a new core, but Jotego did work on fixing reported issues with old cores. One of the issues fixed already was an issue with the flip screen mode in 1943 and Gunsmoke. Also, expect spinner support to come to cores that would benefit from it. And if you want to know all that Jotego's team has accomplished throughout 2022, there's a Patreon post detailing all the cores that have been released and some details for future cores. If you're one of Core Developers Pierco's Patreon subscribers, you can now download a pre-built core for the game Crazy Blocks. However, if you don't want to wait for the public release, you can head over to GitHub to obtain the source code and compile the core for yourself. And other MiSTer related fixes and updates are, Mike Simone made some fixes to his System 16S video cores. Thanks to Deep Thought from Discord, who pointed out some problems he was having with his Sony Trinitron TV. The problem was that the carrier frequency was way out while Mike Simone was trying to tune out the composite dot crawl. It's now fixed, and as you can see from the Twitter post, the difference is huge. You can obtain Mike Simone's dedicated S video cores through the Update All script and enabling in one of the optional features. For the MiSTer distribution repository, there's improved filtering for MGL files and top folders. For the main MiSTer software, the menu had its framework updated. There's an INI option to disable autofire. The names.txt file can now be used for MGL and MRA files as well. There are now INI options to control brightness, contrast, saturation, hue, and HDR. Note that this isn't real HDR, it's pseudo HDR. This was thanks to Sam Hardman, and MiSTer Main had other fixes and tweaks. For the Linux kernel, Fanatec driving wheel support was added by Michael Huang. Logitech wheel drivers are now included. The wheel driver was updated by Track 17. There is now an experimental CPU frequency / overclock driver by Michael Huang. Birdie Broad added support for the TP-Link UB500 adapter. The 8-bit Dot Ultimate Controller ID was added to the XPad driver by Rudd Claver. EDID utilities were added, and there were other fixes and tweaks. For the Neo Geo core, Paul BNL fixed rendering the last 2 sprites. For the Atari 2600/7800 core, HitDrinks implemented the following updates. Mouse sensitivity was fixed when the mouse was used as a paddle. There was a fix for the virtual light gun not working when crop overscan is enabled. The virtual light gun accuracy was improved and a horizontal tuning option was added. An option to allow some quirky USB to paddle adapters have both paddles on the same controller. Check the README if you want more details for this. Support for new 7800 bank set mappers were added. Support for the Poke chip at a different header parameter. And sound clipping when multiple audio sources are used at the same time was fixed. One game affected by this is 1942. That's it for other updates. Please also try to support Sorge, the maintainer of the MiSTer project, and other MiSTer developers and contributors on support platforms such as Patreon and Ko-fi. Their hard work allows us to enjoy this amazing project. So that's it for this week's episode. I provided links to all my sources in the description. Make sure you also check out retrorgb.com to see my MiSTer news videos in blog form and to get more retro related content. And if possible, support them on Patreon too. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. And if you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button and its bell icon so you can get notified of future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you next time.